Chapter 21. Nick's heart pounded with a flood of reasons of why Michellin sounded the way she did. It wasn't fear or anger he heard. That was just it. He couldn't describe it, which made him more anxious as to what had happened. Nick swerved into the parking lot of Lacobe's auto shop. Shutting off the siren, he got out and made his way over to where Michellin stood, talking to one of the mechanics.
I got here as soon as I could. What happened?
Nick asked, bracing himself for the worst.
My car. Sheriff?
The mechanic interrupted.
My garage was broken into last night. If you come this way, you can see the damage,
he said, leading Nick around the back where sat the charred remains of a car.
Whose car is that?
Nick was almost afraid to ask. It was then that Michellin broke down and sobbed.
Sheriff, I don't understand. I've been in business for almost 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. This woman brought her car in yesterday evening. It just needed the driver's window replaced. I told her I was about to close up shop for the day, but that I'd have it ready for her by this afternoon. When I got here, the fire department was out front. Did they move the car? No, that's just it. There was no damage. It's like whoever did this broke inside, moved the car, and then torched it,
he said as Michellin sobbed even louder. Nick wasn't sure what to do first, console Michellin or check out the car.
I have some questions to ask the lady. Would you excuse me for a moment? I'll be inside,
the mechanic said as he left. Nick walked over to Michellin. It was his intention to assure her that he would take care of the situation, but for the life of him, he was stumped.
My car,
she said quietly.
I'm so sorry,
Nick said, resisting the urge to take her into his arms, despite the fact that this was an indirect attack towards him. Nick had to treat this matter as he would any other official matter.
All my papers inside my glove compartment are gone.
You mean destroyed?
No, someone took them.
What?
I tried to see if anything was salvageable, but there's no ashes or anything showing that something was ever there. It's all gone.
There's no proof that the man who bashed your window is responsible for this, but he's definitely a suspect. Can you describe him to me?
He had dark hair, very thin mustache and beard. He's kind of medium built, and after bashing in my window, he's probably has a cut on his right hand. I can't think of anything else. Was he targeting me?
Somebody probably tipped him off that you're here investigating the case, so he's trying to see what you have on him. You said he gave you $40 to pay for the damage. Do you still have them?
Yes,
Michellin said, going through the items of her purse. Michellin pulled the bills from her wallet. She looked down at them and then back up at Nick.
They're counterfeit.
Her mouth twitched self-consciously.
We'll test them to see if we can get a clean print,
Nick said.
In the meantime, I'm going to go talk to the mechanic. I have a few more questions for him. I won't be long.
Nick left as Michellin stood staring at the remains of her car. After wrapping up things at the garage, Nick drove Michellin back to her motel. He parked as he rested his elbow up on the armrest of the door.
That car was my first major purchase,
Michellin said, trying to hold back her tears.
What am I supposed to do now? I have no job, no car,
she said, drying the tears from her cheek. Nick's heart was breaking. Little by little, the people around him were becoming targets, and it was all a matter of time before someone was seriously hurt.
Let's go inside,
Nick said, coming around to open the door for her. As they neared the motel room, Nick noticed the door was ajar. Moving Michellin back, he pulled the gun from his holster and shoved the door open, ready to fire. But the ransacked room of clothes thrown on the floor and mattress overturned told him that he was too late. Michellin pushed her way into the room. There she stood, wrapped in a state of panic, fear, and anger, as her eyes moved over the ruins of her room.
They've got my files, my laptop, everything.
Nick had dealt with incidents like this before, but never on a personal level, making him just as out of sorts as Michellin.
Get a grip,
he told himself. Nick went to the door to see if there were any signs of forced entry. There wasn't. It was just as he had feared. Whoever torched Michelin's car must have been searching in the shop under her name, revealing where she was staying. Anyone could have picked the lock on the door. Michellin walked over to him.
I can't stay here. Would you mind if I stay with you for a while?
I thought that was just understood.
Thank you. I'll just pack up a few things and then we can go.
I can't let you do that,
Nick said, stopping her.
At least not yet. This is a crime scene. I have to investigate.
But these are my personal things. Haven't I been violated enough?
Yes, you have. But you know I have to check this room for evidence.
How long is it going to take?
An hour, maybe 2. It's my job, Michellin.
I know.
Her words were barely audible. Nick reached for her, but she pulled away. She was hurting, he told himself, even though he felt it. Telling her that he loved her would have only made things worse. The timing was off. The only thing he knew she wanted was to wake up from this nightmare. He would have felt the same way had it been him. No, the best thing to do now was to get the investigation started. Nick went out to the car and came back with his investigation report form on a clipboard, where he planned to enter the details of this incident right beneath the details he had just entered regarding Michelin's car only moments before. Nick couldn't help but wonder what was going to happen next, as he conducted a thorough investigation, paying close attention to every detail, which included the lacy undergarments from her dresser drawer. Hearing her indignant huff, he looked up just in time to see Michellin roll her eyes before going over to the window where she stood, peering out. Nick said nothing as he continued his work. Hearing the static over his radio, he pressed the button.
Sheriff Moran, over.
This emergency dispatch, I have a disturbance at the gas setup at 820 Oakdale. Do you copy?
Copy that.
He said as Michellin turned to him.
Are you finished?
Seeing her humiliation, he nodded.
I have another call across town, but you can go on to the house.
He said, pulling his house key from the ring.
Make yourself at home.
Thank you.
Are you going to be okay?
Yeah, I'll just pack up my things and call a cab.
I was planning to help you, you know that, but I've got to go.
I'll be fine, really. I'll see you later.
Nick could feel something between them pulling them apart.
Thank you for everything,
Michellin said in a hollow tone. He told her goodbye and then left. Now that Fisk was out of town, Nick was back to handling every call himself. Most of the calls were domestic disputes and a few traffic violations. Tomorrow had promised to be even more hectic. On top of everything else, he had to be in court for a hearing regarding a child custody case, which would probably last the majority of the afternoon as well as the next day. It was nearly 4 o'clock when Nick met with Martin Haley to discuss the details of the vandalism of Michelin's car. Martin always expected a visit from Nick after each fire-related case.
I was just wondering,
Martin began.
Is this incident related to the case you've been working on account that this particular car belongs to that woman from D.C.? Off the record, Martin, yes, it is. You know, that Randy Denning called earlier this morning with a lot of questions. Seems he didn't know who the car belonged to. I'm pretty sure if he did, he would have shown up to cover the story in person. It's a good thing that didn't happen. The last thing this case needs is more exposure. Any suspects? I'm checking into it. Who called the report in? Dispatch got a call around 3:45 this morning from some guy on a burner phone. Call couldn't be traced. A burner phone? Yes, why? No reason. If I have any more questions, give me a call.
Martin cut in.
Thanks, Martin. Have a good one. You too, Nick.
Martin said as Nick left. That evening, Nick sat in his driveway working up the nerve to go inside. From what he remembered this morning, Michellin wanted to be alone. He couldn't blame her then, but was that the case now? Nick unlocked the door and went inside.
Where is she?
He asked, checking all the rooms where he thought she would be. It wasn't until he opened the door to the spare bedroom at the end of the hall that he found her sitting on the floor at the foot of the bed. Though Nick was happy to have found her, he couldn't ignore the disappointment that he hadn't found her in the room she would share with him. As far as he was concerned, her choosing the spare room said that she was reluctant and uncertain that this was where she wanted to be, and perhaps she was only sharing his accommodations until a better offer came along.
Michellin,
Nick said, ignoring his wounded pride. She looked up. Her face still held the same confusion he saw this morning. Nick eased down beside her. There he sat, unable to think of what to say to break the ice. He had a sinking feeling that she was waiting for him to speak, so that she could yell at him, or if he said nothing, would she accuse him of not caring. Susan used to set the same trap for him. Now it was Michelin's turn. He couldn't win. Nick rested his head back against the foot of the bed. He felt like a bother in his own home. Feeling too ridiculous to continue, he motioned to get up, when Michellin moved her arm around his waist and rested her head upon his shoulder. It was an unexpected gesture, but it felt good.
I called the insurance company today.
Michellin said. Nick didn't move a muscle as he sat listening, waiting, hoping that she'd heard some good news.
They said that it should fall under the auto body shop's liability coverage. Then I called the auto body shop and spoke to the manager, and he said that their insurance wouldn't pay anything since the shop wasn't directly responsible for the damage.
But the fact that it was taken out of their care still holds them liable.
Never mind that. If I know you, you were out trying to gather more evidence. So, what did you come up with?
Hearing her confidence in him, he smiled.
I did find out one thing. The guy who called in the report is probably the same guy who torched your car. I checked with the manager at the Grable Motel. He said he didn't see anybody suspicious lurking around. He also said that he didn't have security cameras, so I went and got a copy of the tape from the emergency dispatcher. Here it is, if you'd like to listen to it.
Nick said, taking the audio cassette from his pocket.
What are you waiting for?
She asked, leaping to her feet with new hope, pulling Nick up.
I'm right behind you.
Nick laughed, following Michellin into the living room. Over to the bookshelf they went, where sat a cassette player. With one swipe of his hand, Nick cleared the dust from its surface, stuck the cassette into the slot, and pressed play. What started as an exciting process soon lost its zest after fast-forwarding and rewinding until reaching the calls made around 3:30 a.m.
Are you sure you remember what the guy's voice sounded like after listening to all these other calls?
I'll know him when I hear him.
Nick heard the confidence in Michelin's voice. Of course she would remember the voice belonging to the man with the New Jersey tags. The question was now, how many more calls would they have to listen to before she recognized his voice?
That's him. That's the guy.
Michellin yelled, finally hearing the message.
Listen.
She insisted, straining her ears to hear every sound the message possessed, from the time the caller requested assistance from the fire department to the time he hung up when the dispatch operator asked his name.
That's him. We've got him.
Michellin sounded.
He's definitely from up east. Just like Riko or Jayla.
Nick said, turning off the recorder.
Thank you, Nick, for being there for me today.
Michellin wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Hearing her now, the thought of her intended sleeping arrangements came to mind. Nick pulled away.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
You look like there's something on your mind.
He chuckled with a shake of his head.
I guess I'm just kind of curious.
About what?
You're happy with me today because we have good news about the case. But what if I wasn't able to get this?
What are you talking about?
I asked you before to come and stay with me, and you wouldn't. Even after the kids were gone, you said no. And after, because of what happened, you're here. But it's like you're still not. You put your things in the spare room. I mean, how do you see me? What am I to you?
My life is falling apart and you want to talk about this now?
I'll admit the timing's off, but it's still a valid question.
Fair enough. We're seeing each other.
We're seeing each other. That sounds so casual.
What do you want me to say?
I want you to tell me what I am to you. If it weren't for this case, am I someone you would see yourself being involved with in a relationship here in Kellyanne?
Had it not been for this case, I don't know if we would have ever met.
That's not the point, and you know it.
What is the point, Nick?
Am I someone you would have chosen to be with on your own? You told me that you loved me, but did you mean it?
Of course, I meant it. But I don't understand where this is coming from. Why would you want to complicate things more than they are already?
Things are only complicated when you're not sure how you feel. I'll see you in the morning. Good night.
Nick.
Michellin called out, but he went to his room and closed the door. Nick got undressed and climbed into the shower. The hot, steamy water was just what he needed to help relax the tension from his muscles and block out the fact that Michellin was only there because she had nowhere else to go. When was he going to get it through his thick skull that she was using him just like Susan had done? Nick fumed, shutting off the water. Having dried himself off, he tossed the damp towel on the floor, turning off the bathroom lights and climbing into bed. There he lay, staring up at the ceiling, scolding himself for falling for this woman when she was no different from the woman who had left him. The piercing jab of aggravation made him feel like punching something. After falling asleep somewhere around 2, Nick was awakened by an arm that brushed over his back. Shifting in his sleep, he moved his leg across the full width of the bed before bumping into another leg. Opening his eyes, he turned over. There beside him lay Michellin, sleeping soundly. Nick remained motionless for a moment, taking in the moonlight that glimmered through the blinds, casting its shine off the soft strands of her hair. How was it that he hadn't heard her come in or lie down beside him? Nick wondered before coming to the conclusion that it was nothing but a dream, like so many dreams he had had of her before. The phone rang the next morning, awakening Nick. Reaching his hand out from underneath the covers, he grabbed up the receiver from the nightstand.
Hello?
He answered on the second ring. His voice was dry and raspy.
Sheriff Moran, it's me, Deputy Fisk. Good morning. I'm sorry to wake you, but I was just checking in. How's it going? So far, so good. I made it to Jacksonville late last night. I'm heading over to the police department now. You didn't have any trouble, did you? Not at all, sir. That's good.
Nick said as a leg bumped his. He turned over. There lay Michellin, sleeping soundly.
I'll give you a call when I get back to Callahan. I appreciate it.
Nick said, taking in the sight of her.
Sure thing, Sheriff. Goodbye.
Deputy Fisk said, hanging up, as did Nick. Michellin opened her eyes.
Good morning.
Michellin said softly, pulling up the sheet, covering herself as she stared up at him.
Good morning.
I moved my things in. I hope you don't mind.
My door's always open.
I wasn't sure if you were still angry with me.
I wasn't angry. Hurt, maybe. Disappointed. But not angry.
He said, trying to downplay what he was feeling at the time.
Nick, you were angry, and you had every right. It's just everything was moving so fast, I couldn't think straight. I'm sorry.
Will you always push me away when things get tough?
I think that's always been my default. But I want to be here. I'm sorry that I ever made you doubt that.
Thank you.
For what?
For coming to me last night and being here this morning.
Well, Sheriff, you're just going to have to get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere.
I hope you mean that.
He said, settling a kiss upon her lips before he made love to her. Friday evening, Nick and Michellin had dinner at the Gus's home. Ida and Trini had spotted them in the produce section at Howe's doing some shopping for a quiet evening for two when Ida all but insisted that they join her and Trini for dinner. Not wanting to refuse their hospitality again, Nick and Michellin accepted their invitation.
Eat up now, Sheriff. There's plenty of corned beef and cabbage.
Trini said, piling his plate up once more.
Thank you, Mr. Gus.
Nick said, picking up his fork again, taking in another forkful of Mrs. Gus's creation. According to Trini, corned beef and cabbage happened to be his favorite, which explained why Ida always cooked it for him. During dinner, Trini shared stories of how he and Ida first met and fell in love just before the Vietnam War, and how Ida kept every letter Trini ever wrote while he was away. Nick admired how Trini and Ida weathered the traumas of the war and its effect on their marriage. Despite their difficulties, Ida never left Trini or had him institutionalized. They made their vows to each other back when the words "I love you" meant something. Nick saw it in the way they treated each other, and he heard it in the laughter they shared. Nick wondered if his and Michelin's love was as strong as theirs. After dinner, Nick and Michellin retired to the living room for apple cobbler and the Gus's photo album. It was a delight to see the black and white photographs of the couple in their younger days. Mr. Gus looked handsomely dapper in his army uniform, standing with a loving arm around Mrs. Gus in front of the bandstand at a USO party. There were even photographs of their wedding day and their first home before they moved and settled down in the home where they now resided.
That's my Ida. She's still the prettiest girl in the world and a darn good cook,
Trini said, staring down at his and Ida's wedding photograph.
I agree,
Michellin said, followed by another forkful of cobbler.
Do I hear wedding bells for you and Mrs. Stone, Sheriff?
Ida asked. Nick, getting caught up in the idea of making Michellin his wife, swallowed wrong, causing him to cough. Michellin laughed, patting his back.
Now, Sheriff, don't go getting yourself all choked up. She's a keeper,
Trini said as Ida chimed in with similar sentiments.
No, I absolutely agree.
Nick smiled at Michellin. Throughout the evening, Nick found himself wondering if Trini's delusions would get the better of him, but apparently that only happened when Trini was feeling stressed. Tonight, however, he was happy and relaxed, resulting in a nice evening. Hearing his cell phone ring, Nick excused himself from their company and went into the other room to answer his call in private.
The Sheriff Moran. Sheriff Moran, it's Deputy Fisk.
Nick stood silently listening to the reason for Fisk's call. It turned out to be the best news Nick had heard in months. Nick returned to the living room, attempting to sound calm as not to stir up any unnecessary tension with Trini.
Is everything okay?
Michellin asked, setting her empty dessert plate on the coffee table.
That's Fisk. He needs me down at the station. Then you're leaving?
Trini asked with regret.
Well, that's a shame. I'm really sorry to have to cut the evening short. I had a wonderful time.
Yes, thank you both very much for having us.
We'll have to do this again, you hear?
Trini returned.
We'd like that.
So would we, dear.
Ida said, giving Nick a hug, followed by the hug she gave Michellin. Nick could tell that Michellin made a huge impression with the Gusses. They didn't take kindly to everyone. On the other hand, most people didn't take kindly to them because of Trini. With the exception of Nick. The Gusses could tell that Nick cared for them very much. It was because of him that they accepted Michellin as quickly as they did. But having gotten to know her, they came to like her for themselves.
That was fun,
Michellin said, getting into the car. The light-hearted sound of her voice captured Nick's attention. He turned to her, but Michellin didn't see him. She was too busy staring back towards the Gus's home. It was as if she was sad to be leaving.
So,
Michellin began in a more official tone.
Did Fisk say anything about Charlene?
Just said he bought her back. If you're up for it, I'd like you to question her.
Me?
Michellin turned to him.
Why not? I'll question her when you're done.
But what would be the point now? I have no more interest in this case. Not professionally, anyway.
She doesn't have to know that.